And so we settle in. You can feel your body beginning to grow heavy in the most pleasant way. In our time together tonight, there is nothing to examine, nothing to understory. A story that begins in a time and place that was anything but gentle. A world of mud and smoke and very, very hard rules. A world where knowing how to read a single sentence could be the only thing standing between you and the end of a road. Before we drift too far into that world, if you feel a connection to this quiet space, you're welcome to leave a soft like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as a quiet nod, a way to ensure you can always find your way back to this harbor. And if you feel so inclined, you could even leave a comment, letting me know in what city and at what time you are listening. It's always a quiet joy to know where in the world these stories are landing. All right, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. Your story. You are born not in a hospital but on a packed earth floor. The year is, well, you don't really know the year. Numbers like that are for clerks and kings. For you, there is only the rhythm of the seasons. You are born in the spring, when the mud outside is starting to firm up and the world smells of damp earth and new life. Your first memory is not of a face, but of a smell. The thick, comforting scent of wood smoke that hangs permanently in the air of the single room you will call home. This home is a wattle and daub hut. That's a fancy way of saying it's a basket fort of sticks, plastered with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung. It has all the modern amenities of the late 13th century, which is to say none. There is one room for your entire family. You, your parents, your siblings. And in the winter, the cow, if you're lucky enough to have one. The floor is dirt, perhaps strewn with a bit of straw that gets changed. Sometimes, light comes from the open doorway or a single, small window hole that can be stuffed with a rag to keep out the wind. Your world is lit by the hearth fire in the center of the room, a fire that is never, ever allowed to go out. You grow up in a world of textures. The rough, scratchy wool of your simple tunic against your skin. The surprising warmth of a sunbeam on the hut's wall. The deep, squelching cold of the mud between your toes, because shoes are a luxury you might get one day, if the harvest is good. Your world is also a world of sounds. The constant crackle of the fire, the lowing of the animals just outside the wall, the howl of the wind, and the quiet, rhythmic sounds of your mother grinding grain with a stone. Your diet is simple. In fact, simple is an understatement. At the center of your culinary world is the great black pot that hangs over the fire. This is the home of pottage and endless stew. It's a soup that never truly ends, only changes. Into it goes whatever is on hand. Some oats, some barley, a handful of peas or beans from the garden patch, a wizened carrot, an onion. If you're lucky, a scrap of bacon for flavor. Every day, more water and more ingredients are added. It simmers for days, weeks even. It's a surprisingly effective system, and historians still marvel at how this simple, perpetual broth sustained generations. It is for you the taste of home. Bread is a treat. It's dark, heavy, and dense. Meat is a fantasy, reserved for feast days mandated by the church, or if the lord of the manor is feeling generous. You learn the shape of your world quickly. It is small. There is your village, a small cluster of huts like yours. There is the church, the only stone building you've ever seen, tall and imposing, with its sharp, ringing bell that tells you when to wake, when to pray, and when to rest. And then there are the fields, the three massive, open fields that surround the village. This is where you will spend your life. You learn the rhythm of the three-field system without ever knowing its name. It's just the way things are. One field is for wheat or rye for bread. The second is for things like beans, peas, or oats, which help put life back into the soil. And the third is left fallow, empty, to rest and recover, with the village animals grazing upon it. Each year, they rotate. It's a clever, sustainable system. And you are a tiny, human cog in its great, slow-turning wheel. Your family doesn't own a plot of land. You work a collection of strips, scattered across all 3 fields. A strip here, a strip here, a strip there. It's meant to be fair, to ensure everyone gets a bit of the good land and a bit of the not-so-good land. In reality, it means you spend a lot of your day just walking. Who do you answer to? Everyone. You answer to the village priest who speaks in a strange language on Sundays and tells you about the eternal consequences of your actions. And most of all, you answer to the Lord's reeve, the man who manages the estate. He is the one who makes sure you work the Lord's personal lands, the domain, before you work your own. He is the one who collects the taxes, the tithes, the fines. Are you a freeman or are you a serf? The line is often blurry, a complicated status that historians still spend entire careers trying to untangle. You are not a slave, not in the old sense. You can't be bought and sold like property. But can you leave? Can you pack up your non-existent belongings and seek your fortune in the next town? Absolutely not. You are tied to this land. You belong to the manor, a part of its assets, as vital and as fixed as its soil. Your life is not your own. It belongs to the cycle of the seasons, the will of the Lord, and the grace of a God you can't see, but whose judgment you are told to fear above all else. And in this small, muddy world, you are about to learn that the judgment of men can be just as swift and far more final. Your understanding of the law begins small. It starts with the manor court held in the Lord's Hall or sometimes just under a big oak tree. It's a familiar, almost cozy kind of justice. You see your neighbor find a chicken for letting his pig root through someone's vegetable patch. You hear an old widow complain about a fence that has been mended. These are the rules of the village, problems measured in loaves of bread and days of labor. It's all very personal. But you learn one autumn that there is another kind of law. A law that is vast, impersonal, and utterly terrifying. The king's law. It begins when a body is found in the woods that border the fallow field. It's not one of your village. A stranger. Aim and rest in slightly better clothes, with soft-looking boots. The discovery sends a shiver of cold fear through the community that has nothing to do with the coming winter. This is not a matter for the reeve and the manor court. This is a dead body. This is a matter for the king. You learn that the entire kingdom is considered to be under the king's peace, and a murder is not just a crime against the victim, but a tear in that fragile fabric, an insult to the king himself. And the king does not take insults lightly. Soon, the king's representative, the coroner, arrives. He is not like the reeve. He is a man from a different world, a world of documents on Latin phrases. He asks questions nobody can answer. The whole village is gathered, and you stand with your family, feeling the weight of his gaze. There is a simmering panic beneath the surface. You feel it in the way no one makes a joke, the way your father's jaw is set. Then comes the real terror. The reeve announces the problem. The dead man appears to have been a Norman, or at least someone of Norman descent. And there is a special rule for this, a law that hangs over every English village like a guillotine. It's called the drum fine. If a Norman is found dead and the community cannot produce the killer, the entire region, the 100, they call it, will be forced to pay a crippling fine to the king. It was a clever piece of social engineering by the conquerors decades ago, designed to stop the locals from quietly murdering their new overlords. The law remains, and its effect is immediate. Suddenly, it is in every owner's best interest to find a killer, any killer. Suspicion, like a foul smoke, begins to drift. It settles on a man named Thomas, a sullen, quiet man who lives of the village and keeps to himself. He was seen near the woods that day. Is he guilty? Does it matter? A story is woven, a tapestry of half-truths and nervous glances. He argued with a stranger at the market last month. He owns a sharp knife for carving wood. The evidence is flimsy, but the fear of the drum fine is heavy and real. The real trial happens weeks later when the traveling justices of the assize court arrive. This is a spectacle. These are great lords, powerful men who speak for the king. The court is held, and Thomas is brought forth. There is a jury, but they are not like the juries you might imagine. They are a jury of presentment, 12 men from your own community. Their job is not so much to weigh evidence as it is to present the accused and attest to the community's belief, with the great fine hanging over their heads. Their duty is clear. They point the finger at Thomas. The judge, draped in furs, listens impassively. There are no impassioned lawyers, no detailed forensics. There is an accusation, a denial, and the word of the jury. It's over in less time than it takes to milk a cow. The verdict is guilty. The sentence is death. You don't see the act itself, but you see the preparations. You see the gallows being built on the hill outside the village. A stark, skeletal shape against the grey sky. It is built to be seen. It is a message. You learn that the king's justice is not about finding the truth. Historians, centuries from now, will debate the true crime rates of your era, sifting through the patchy court rolls, but they can never measure the amount of fear or the number of times justice was just a convenience. The lesson is simple and brutal. The king's law is a blunt instrument. It is swift, it is public, and it is final. It does not care if you are a good man or a bad man. It only cares about order. And as you lie in your hut, listening to the wind whistle through the daub, a cold seed of terror is planted in your mind. What if, one day, you were the one in the wrong place at the wrong time? In this world, under this law, there is no hope. Or is there? Because you've also noticed something else. There is another power in the village, one house in the stone church. A power with its own lands, its own wealth, and you're about to discover its own law. The church is not just a building, it's an empire that runs parallel to the kingdom. You feel its presence every single day. The bell in the stone tower dictates your hours, its cyan tongue marking the time for prayer, for work, for sleep. It's the only clock your world has. The priest, Father John, is a figure of immense authority. He is often the only man in the village who can read and write, a skill so rare it seems like a form of magic. He holds the keys to your immortal soul, and you've been taught from birth that your brief, hard life on this earth is merely a prelude, a test before an eternity of bliss or torment. That gives him a power that even the king's reeve can't match. You see the church's wealth everywhere. A significant portion of the land around your village doesn't belong to the lord of the manor, but to a distant, wealthy monastery. You work those lands too. You see the tithe barn, a huge, steady structure far grander than your own hut, where 1/10 of everything you produce, every 10th sheaf of wheat, every 10th basket of peas, the 10th calf born must be given to the church, and not paying it is a sin that carries consequences both in this life and the next. But the church's power goes far beyond land and grain. It has its own system of law, its own courts. They call it canon law, and it governs huge swaths of your life. Sins like blasphemy, heresy, and adultery are not the king's business. They are matters for the ecclesiastical court. Marriages, wills, inheritance, all are tangled up in the church's legal web. This creates a fascinating and sometimes frustrating duality. You are a subject of the king, but you are also a sheep in the church's flock, and sometimes the shepherd and the king disagree on who gets to shear you. You witness this firsthand. A dispute arises over a small plot of land. Is it part of the manor's holdings, or was it long ago bequeathed to the local diocese? The reeve says one thing, Father John says another. The case isn't settled under the oak tree or by the king's travelling justices. It's handled by men in black robes who arrive from the cathedral city, carrying scrolls and speaking a fluid, clipped Latin. They set up their court in the church itself. It's a completely different atmosphere. There's less shouting and more quiet, intense discussion. Documents are produced, old charters are unrolled. It's a battle of ink and parchment, and it's clear that the reeve is completely out of his depth. The church wins, of course. It almost always does. This is where you first start to grasp a fundamental truth of your world. There are two powers, two great legal systems running side by side. The king's law is the law of the body concerned with theft, violence, and keeping the peace. Its punishments are physical and final. The stocks, the branding iron, the noose. The church's law is the law of the soul. Its punishments are spiritual. Public penance, fines, and the ultimate threat of excommunication. being cast out from the communication, being cast out from the communication, being cast out from the community of God, a fate worse than death in the eyes of many. And here is the strange part, the detail that seems almost like a mistake in the system. The church claims jurisdiction over its own people. Not just priests and bishops, but anyone who has taken even the most minor holy orders. Monks, nuns, church scribes, deacons, even the boy who sweeps the church floor, they are all considered clerks or clerics. And if a cleric commits a crime, even a crime like murder, the church insists that he cannot be tried by the king's brutal court. He must be tried by the more lenient ecclesiastical court, where the goal is penance and reformation, not execution. The worst they can usually do is rock you, strip you of your clerical status and lock you in a bishop's prison. And for the king's justices, this is infuriating. It's a line they cannot cross, a sacred privilege they resent but are forced, most of the time, to respect. This idea lodges in your mind, a strange and glittering anomaly. You see the evidence of it. There's a man in a nearby village, a tonsure de clerc, meaning he has the special haircut, a shaved patch on his crown, who got into a drunken brawl and killed a man. Everyone knows he did it. Had he been one of you, he would have swung from a gibbet within the month. But because of his shaved head and his connection to the church, he was taken away by the bishop's men. Chies, now doing penance. Probably living in a monastery with better food and a warmer bed than you've ever known. Historians will later call this the benefit of clergy, a legal concept that would shape justice for centuries. They argue endlessly about its origins. Did it grow from a genuine desire to protect the sacred from the profane, or was it just a medieval power grab by a church eager to expand its influence? For you, sitting in the smoky dimness of your hut, the academic debate means nothing. You just see the reality. There is one law for the ordinary man, a law of rope and fear, softer law for the men of the church, a law of prayer and penance. Two paths from the same crime, leading to two vastly different destinations, a gallows or a cell. It all depends on who you are, or, more importantly, who you can pretend to be. The seasons turn. The brief, muddy warmth of summer gives way to the harvest, a frantic period of work from before sunrise to after sunset. Then comes the long, cold quiet of winter. The world outside your hut shrinks to the path to the well and the woodpile. It's a time for mending tools, for huddling close to the fire, and for telling stories. One evening, a child from a snowstorm, in exchange for a few trinkets, tells a story that pricks your ears and sets your mind alight. He tells of a trial he witnessed in a large town to the south. A man was accused of stealing a horse, a crime for which the punishment was unquestionably death. The man was a weaver by trade, not a priest. He was caught red-handed. His guilt was as plain as the nose on his face. He was brought before the judge, looking pale and doomed. The peddler describes the scene in the crowded cold hall. The judge, the jury, the grim-faced guards. The verdict was given. Guilty. But then, the man did something strange. He spoke up, his voice trembling, and uttered a phrase in Latin. He claimed benefit of clergy. A murmur went through the court. The judge annoyed at the man. He had no tonsure, no shaved head. He wore the simple clothes of a tradesman. You are no clerk, the judge scoffed. But the man insisted. This was the crucial point, the part of the story that makes you lean closer to the fire. In the early days, you had to look like to claim the privilege. But the law had been tested, stretched, and warped over time. Now, in some courts at least, a new, stranger test was sometimes being applied. The real test of being a cleric, the argument went, wasn't the haircut, it was literacy. Because who, in this world of mud and muscle, could read? Only clerks. The two were almost synonymous. To be literate was to be a man of the church, or at least to have been educated by it. So, the judge, bound by a precedent he clearly disliked, called for the test. The court official, the ordinary, the peddler calls him, usually the bishop's representative, stepped forward. He carried a heavy, bound book. The Psalter, the book of Psalms, from the Bible. The peddler says it was always the same book. The man on trial, the condemned weaver, was shaking so hard you could hear his teeth chatter. The ordinary opened the book, not to a random page, but to a very specific one. He pointed his finger at the first line. All the man had to do was read it. Just one verse. The hall fell silent. The weaver squinted at the page. The letters were a meaningless scroll to 99% of the population. To you, the idea of looking at marks on a page and hearing words in your head is pure alchemy. The weaver took a deep, shuddering breath. And then, haltingly, stumbling over the Latin words he clearly didn't understand, he read the verse aloud. The peddler doesn't know the words, but he remembers the effect. A collective gasp. The judge slumped back in his chair, disgusted. He couldn't hang him. The man had passed the test. He had proven, in the eyes of this strange and twisted law, but he was a cleric. He was not sentenced to death. He was handed over to the bishop's men. The peddler heard later he was branded on the thumb and let go after a few months of penance. He had walked free. Your father grunts, dismisses it as a clerk's trick. But the story doesn't leave you. It plants itself in your mind like a stubborn seed. A secret escape hatched from the world. A cheat code. You spend the rest of the winter thinking about it. Reading. What a strange and powerful skill. It's a form of magic you had never even considered. The world is divided not just into the rich and the poor, the noble and the common. It's divided into those who can read and those who cannot. Can be the difference between life and death. Historians will forever debate how this practice became so widespread. Was it legal sloppiness? A deliberate compromise between crown and church? Or was it, as some cynics suggest, a way for educated nobles and wealthy merchants, the kind of men who could afford a tutor for their sons, to have a built-in advantage, a get-out-of-jail-free card unavailable to the peasant masses? There's no single answer. But for you, the peddler's story illuminates a stark reality. It's a game with hidden rules, and only a select few know how to play. You start to notice things differently. You look at Father John's prayer book with a new sense of awe. You see the strange markings on a coin and wonder what they mean. The world, which had always been a collection of things, trees, stones, people, suddenly seems to have a secret layer of symbols overlaid on it, a language you can't comprehend. The story of the weaver and his book becomes a personal legend, a whisper of a possibility in a world that has always seemed to have none. A single verse. A neck verse, the peddler had called it, because it saved your neck from the noose. The name is grim, but to you, it sounds like the most beautiful poetry in the world. Life continues its slow, grinding rhythm. The peddler's story fades into the background, a fascinating but seemingly irrelevant piece of folklore. The world is too immediate, its demands too pressing, for you to dwell on such fantasies. You are older now, your hands calloused and strong. You know the weight of an axe, the feel of the plough, the ache in your back at the end of a long day in the fields. And you are about to learn another of your world's hard lessons. That ruin can come not from the king's law, but from the petty greed of a man with a little bit of power. It begins with your family's pig. It's not just an animal, it's a future. It's been fattened all year on scraps and forage. It represents the only real source of meat you'll have all winter, the fat rendered for cooking, the bristles used for, well, whatever bristles are used for. It is, in its own way, the family savings account. One day, the Lord's Reeve announces a new special tax. Not from the king, not from the church, but from the lord of the manor himself. He claims the manor's mill needs urgent repairs, and every family must contribute a portion of its assets. The Reeve, a man whose belly is noticeably rounder than anyone else's in the village, is the one who assesses the value and collects the tax. He walks through the village, his eyes lingering on every chicken, every sack of grain. His gaze falls upon the pig. Your father argues. He pleads. The pig is worth far more than the pittance required for the tax. But the Reeve isn't moved. He has the authority. He can take what he wants and call it tax in kind. You see a look of cold calculation in his eyes. He doesn't just want to meet the tax, he wants the pig for himself. It's an abuse of power so blatant yet so untouchable that it makes your blood boil. A few days later, the Reeve returns with 2 of his men to collect. Your father stands in the doorway, his face a mask of helpless fury. Your mother is weeping quietly by the hearth. There is nothing you can do. They seize the pig, which squeals in protest, and drag it away. The sound echoes in the small muddy lane. You are left with nothing but the empty pen and a profound, burning sense of injustice. You haven't just lost your winter meat, you've been robbed, legally. This is the kind of everyday tyranny that defines your existence. There are no courts for this. The manor court is run by the reeve's boss, the Lord's steward. To complain would be to invite more trouble, to be branded a troublemaker. You are trapped. The injustice festers, a poison in the heart of your family. The winter will be harder now. The reeve, meanwhile, seems to prosper. A few weeks later, at a village feast day, you see him laughing, his greasy face flushed with ale. He makes a joke about the fine quality of his winter bacon. He doesn't look at you, but you feel the jibe like a physical blow. The humiliation is as bitter as the hunger. This is the slow, grinding pressure that can make a man do something foolish. It's a reality that official court records rarely capture. The documents will list a criminal assault, a theft, a murder, but they seldom record the long chain of provocations, the simmering resentments, the slow burn injustice that led to the final desperate act. Historians can count the convictions, but they can't the quiet indignities that pushed people to the brink. You find yourself watching the reeve. You note the way he swaggers through the village, the way he takes the best cut from the communal hunt, the way he speaks to the women. Your hatred for him becomes a solid thing in your chest. It's a dangerous feeling, you know. To hate a man with power is like holding a hot coal. It only burns your own hand, but you can't let it go. The seed of the peddler's story, long dormant, begins to stir again. The tale of the weaver who read first and walked away. It resurfaces in your mind, no longer a piece of folklore, but a desperate, flickering candle in the darkness. The world has shown you that it is unfair, that the rules are written by men like the reeve to benefit themselves. And if the rules are rigged, the idea of finding a way to cheat them doesn't seem like a sin anymore. You don't know what you would do with such knowledge, such a secret power. The thought is formless, a vague and dangerous dream. But it's there. A whisper in the back of your mind that says there might be another way, a hidden path that only the literate can walk. And every time you see the reeve, his face smug and satisfied, that whisper gets a little louder. The breaking point arrives on a hot, dusty afternoon during the summer market. The market is a rare explosion of life and chaos. People from neighboring villages come to trade, sell, and gossip. The air is thick with the smell of livestock, baked bread, and unwashed bodies. It's a day that should be a welcome break from the monotony of the fields, but for you, it's about to become a nightmare. You are there with your father, trying to sell a small surplus of beans and a few wooden spoons you carved during the winter. It's not much, but every penny counts. As you're haggling with a woman over the price of the spoons, you see him. The reeve. H.E.S. not on official business today, he's here for his own pleasure, moving through the crowd with an air of unearned importance. He stops by your meager stall. He picks up one of the spoons, turns it over in his hand, and scoffs. You call this craftsmanship? A blind dog could carve better. His voice is loud enough for those nearby to hear. The woman you were talking to shuffles away, not wanting to be associated with someone who has attracted the reeve's negative attention. Your father, his face tight, says nothing. He knows the danger of talking back. But you, younger and filled with the still raw anger over the stolen pig, can't stay silent. It's honest work, you mutter, more honest than some. The reeve's eyes narrow. He takes a step closer, his face just inches from yours. His breath smells of sour ale. What did you say, boy? This is the moment, the point where you should look down, mumble an apology, and let it go. Your father puts a warning hand on your arm. But the memory of your mother's tears, the image of that pig being dragged away, the casual, smug cruelty of this man, it all boils over. I said, you say, your voice louder than you intended, that we are honest folk. We don't steal from our neighbors under the color of law. The words hang in the hot, dusty air. The surrounding chatter of the market seems to die down as people turn to look. You have just publicly accused a man of the Lord's court of corruption. It's a monumentally stupid thing to do. The reeve's face turns a dark, mottled red. He is no longer smug, he is furious. His authority rests on a foundation of fear, and you have just tried to kick a stone out from under it. He shoves you hard. Insolent pup. I'll have you whipped for that. You stumble backward, tripping over a basket of turnips. You fall, your hands hitting the dusty ground. The crowd forms a circle around you. Their faces a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. This is entertainment. Your father tries to step in, pleading, "Please, sir, he's just a boy. He meant nothing by it." The reeve shoves your father aside. He looms over you, his face contorted with rage. He raises his hand to strike you. And in that split second, a primal fear takes over. You don't think, you react. Your hand, scrambling in the dirt behind you, closes around a loose stone from the road, about the size of a fist. As the reeve lunges, you swing your arm up. There's a sickening, dull thud. It's a sound that doesn't belong in the lively market. The reeve stumbles back, his eyes wide with surprise more than pain. He touches a spot just above his temple. When he brings his hand away, there is blood on his fingertips. He looks at his hand, then at you, a look of complete disbelief on his face. Then his eyes rail up into his head, and he collapses like a sack of grain. He doesn't get up. A woman screams. The silence that follows is absolute and terrifying. You are on your knees in the dirt, the stone still clutched in your hand. You stare at the reeve's still form, at the dark, spreading stain in the dust around his head. A moment ago, he was a man you hated, a problem, a source of anger. Now he is just a body, a dead body, and you were the one who made him that way. You didn't mean to kill him. It's a thought that screams in your head, but you know it doesn't matter. The distinction between a panicked reaction and a deliberate act is a legal subtlety that doesn't exist for people like you. Historians might later categorize this as manslaughter rather than murder, but in the chaotic, fear-driven justice of your time, there is only the dead man and the man with the bloody stone in his hand. The shock begins to wear off, replaced by a wave of pure ice-cold terror. You look up at the ring of faces staring at you. They are no longer your neighbors. They are witnesses. You see your father's face, pale and horrified. He knows what this means. You haven't just killed a man. You have killed the Lord's Reeve. You have struck at the authority of the manor, and by extension the king. This is not a crime that can be paid for with a fine of chickens. This is a crime that will be paid for at the end of a rope. Your father's voice cuts through your paralysis, a harsh, desperate whisper, "Run." The word breaks the spell. The circle of onlookers is still stunned, frozen in that moment between the event and the reaction. That is your only advantage. You drop the stone as if it's burning hot. You scramble to your feet, kicking over the basket of beans you were so worried about just minutes ago. You shove your way through the crowd, which parts for you now, people pulling their children back as if you carry a plague. Then you hear it. The sound you have dreaded your entire life. A single, powerful voice bellows from the crowd, hue and cry, "Stop him." The phrase is an ancient legal trigger. It's not just a shout, it's a command. The hue and cry is the sworn duty of every able-bodied person who hears it. It obligates the entire community to stop what they are doing and join the pursuit of a suspected felon. To ignore the call is a crime in itself. Suddenly, the entire marketplace, which was a moment ago a collection of individuals, becomes a single hunting party. And you are the prey. You run. You don't know where you're going on your way. You pump your legs, fueled by a surge of adrenaline so powerful it makes the world seem to shimmer and distort. You can hear the sounds behind you, the thud of running feet, the shouts of men, the general chaotic roar of the chase. You glance back once and see a wave of people spilling out of the market square, fanning out their faces grim with purpose. Your instincts take over. You don't run for the open road, you'd be caught in minutes. You cut between two stalls, sending a table of pottery crushing to the ground. You plunge into the narrow, winding alleyways between the village huts. This is your only hope. You grew up in these lanes. You know every twist, every turn, every muddy puddle. The men chasing you are a clumsy mob. You are a terrified, desperate animal on home turf. You can smell the familiar scents of your village wood smoke, thatch, pigs, but they are no longer comforting. They are the smells of the trap you are trying to escape. You've vault over a low wattle fence, landing in someone's herb garden, the scent of crushed mint rising around you. You don't stop. The sounds of the chase seem to be coming from all directions now. They are spreading out, trying to corner you. You realize you can't stay in the village. It's an enclosed space, and they will eventually flush you out. There's only one place to go, the woods. The deep, dark woods that border the manor lands. The woods are a place of fear and folklore, a place of wolves, of spirits, of outlaws, a place where honest folk do not go after dark. But right now, it represents safety, a place to disappear. You burst out of the last alleyway and sprint across the edge of the common pasture, heading for the dark line of trees. The ground is uneven, and you stumble, your lungs burning, a sharp stitch in your side. The shouts behind you get louder. They've seen where you're going, but you have a head start. You reach the tree line and plunge into the cool, green darkness without a second's hesitation. Inside, the world changes. The bright, hot sun is replaced by a dappled gloom. The roar of the crowd is muffled by the thick curtain of leaves. You keep running, crashing through undergrowth, thorns tearing at your tunic into your skin. You don't care. You run until your legs feel like lead and your lungs are on fire, until the sounds of the chase have faded into a distant, intermittent shouting, and then, finally, into silence. You collapse at the base of a huge, ancient oak tree, gasping for breath, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. You are for the moment free, but you are now an outlaw. The term itself means outside the law. You have no rights, no protection. Anyone who finds you can kill you on sight without penalty. You are a wolf's head to be hunted. You lie there, listening to the sounds of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the call of a bird. These are sounds you've heard 1,000 times, but now they sound different, alien. You are no longer a part of the world you knew. You have been violently ejected from it. Your family, your home, the routine of your life all gone in the space of a heartbeat and the swing of a stone. This was the harsh reality of the medieval outlaw. It wasn't a romantic life of robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. For most, it was a short, brutal existence of hiding, starving, and fearing every shadow. And as you lie there, the adrenaline fading and the cold reality setting in, you realize the hue and cry was just the beginning. They will organize search parties. They will bring dogs. Hiding in the woods is a temporary solution. You can't live here forever. Sooner or later, hunger, cold, or a search party will find you. Your brief, desperate flight has only delayed the inevitable. The woods that seemed like a sanctuary by day become a place of terror by night. Every snap of a twig, every hoot of an owl sends a jolt of fear through you. You are shivering, not just from the cold night air, but from shock. You try to sleep, but the image of the reeve's face, the sound of the stone, the screaming, it all plays over and over in your mind. Hunger gnaws at your stomach, a dull, aching reminder of your complete isolation. You manage to survive for 3 days. It is a miserable, animalistic existence. You drink from a stream, the water so cold it makes your teeth ache. You find a handful of bitter, unrippy berries that do little to quiet your stomach. You are constantly on edge, moving every few hours, convinced that the search party is just over the next rise. The loneliness is a physical weight. You have never been truly alone before. Your life has been lived in a small, tight-knit community. That entire community is your enemy. On the 4th day, your luck runs out. You are crouched in a thicket, trying to get a moment's rest when you hear the baying of dogs. It's a sound that cuts right through the forest quiet, a sound of organized pursuit. Panic seizes you. You get up and run, but your flight is clumsy and slow. You are weak from hunger and exhaustion. The dogs are faster. You can hear them crashing through the undergrowth behind you, getting closer. Then you hear the shouts of men. They have you cornered. You burst out of the trees into a small clearing and find yourself face to face with a wall of grim-faced men from your village. They are armed with staves and pitchforks. There is no escape. The dogs, lean and menacing, circle you, barking and snarling. The men close in. You see faces you have known your whole life. Men you have worked alongside in the fields. But they don't look at you with recognition or pity. They look at you as they would a wolf they have trapped. You are the wolf's head, the outlaw. Bringing you in is their duty, and perhaps a way to ensure the Lord's anger falls on you alone, not the entire village. There is no fight left in you. You sink to your knees, your head bowed in defeat. Hands grab you, rough and unforgiving. They bind your wrists behind your back with a coarse rope that cuts into your skin. They march you out of the woods and back towards the village. The walk is a parade of shame. People come out of their huts to stare. No one speaks to you. You are an object now, a piece of legal property to be delivered. You are not taken to a familiar place. You are taken to the local gaol. It's not a large, stone fortress like you might imagine. In a small town like this, the gaol is often little more than a fortified cellar or a small windowless stone hut, owned and operated by the local sheriff. It is a place of holding, not of punishment. The punishment. The door, thick oak bound with iron, groans open. You are shoved inside, and the door slams shut behind you. The sound of the heavy bolt sliding into place is the sound of finality. The darkness is absolute. The air is thick and foul, a putrid mix of damp stone, human waste, and despair. It takes a few moments for your eyes to adjust, to make sense of the gloom. The only light is a faint sliver coming from under the door. The floor is cold, damp stone, slimy to the touch. The space is tiny, barely big enough to lie down in. You are not alone. As your eyes adapt, you make out a shape huddled in the far corner. A man. He hasn't moved or spoken since you were thrown in. You can't see his face, only a dark clump of rags. The silence is heavy, broken only by the drip of water somewhere in the darkness and the sound of your own ragged breathing. This is a medieval gaol. Its purpose is simply to keep you from running away before your trial. There is no concept of rehabilitation. There is no comfort. You are given a small chunk of hard, stale bread and a pail of murky water once a day. That is all. The cold seeps into your bones. The stench is overpowering. The hours, days, blur into one non-terrifying twilight. The psychological toll is immense. You are cut off from the world, from the sun, from any human kindness. Your only companion is the silent figure in the corner and the overwhelming certainty of your fate. Historians who study these institutions are often struck by the sheer number of prisoners who died in gaol before they even made it to trial from disease, starvation, or simply from the cold. It was a system designed to break you, to strip you of hope long before the judge and the hangman did their work. You sit with your back against the cold stone wall, the rope burns on your wrists throbbing. The anger and the adrenaline are long gone, replaced by a hollow, empty dread. The peddler's story, the neck verse, the idea of a secret escape, Hatch it all seems like a stupendous fantasy now. A story told by a fire on a winter's night. This is reality. For cold stone walls, the promise of a trial that is only a formality, and the shadow of the noose growing longer with every passing hour. Days bleed into one another in the suffocating darkness of the gaol. Your sense of time dissolves. Is it morning? Is it morning? Is it night? The only markers are the brief, unceremonious moments when a guard slides the shutter on the door open, shoves in your meager ration of bread and water, and slams it shut again, plunging you back into gloom. The silence ill and Selmet. One day, or perhaps it's a week, you've lost track. The guard is more talkative. As he passes you the chunk of bread, he grunts, "Enjoy it. The king's justices will be here in a fortnight." A fortnight. 2 weeks. The words hit you like a physical blow. The traveling justices of the assize court. The same men who condemned Thomas the woodsman. Their arrival means your trial, and your trial means your sentence. And for killing the Lord's Reeve, there is only one sentence. The news shatters the dull apathy that had settled over you. The terror returns sharp and specific. You begin to picture it. The gallows on the hill. The rough texture of the rope. The faces of the crowd. You feel a cold dread creep up your spine that has nothing to do with the damp stone floor. This is not the abstract fear of the unknown anymore. This is a countdown. You have 14 days, 14 more rations of stale bread, 14 more nights shivering in the dark. And then, the end. Hope is a dangerous thing in a place like this, but you search for it desperately. Could you claim it was an accident? You look at your calloused peasant hands. Who would believe you? Your word against the entire market square of witnesses. Could you plead for mercy? The reeve was the Lord's man. Mercy would be seen as weakness. The Lord would want to make an example of you, to show the other peasants what happens when you challenge his authority. There is no escape. The reality of it is a cage tighter than the stone walls around you. You are a commoner, a serf. You have no money for bribes, no powerful family to intercede on your behalf. You are a disposable piece in a game whose rules were written to ensure you always lose. You think about the reeve. You didn't just kill a man, you disrupted the social order. In the rigid hierarchy of your world, that is the greatest crime of all. The peasant must obey the reeve must obey the Lord must obey the king. It is a chain, and you have broken a link. The entire system demands that you be hammered back into place, or in your case, removed entirely. The image of the gallows becomes an obsession. You've seen hangings before. They are public events, part spectacle, part grim warning. The condemned is paraded through the town, sometimes forced to carry a small wooden cross. A priest walks with them, urging a final confession. The execution itself is often a clumsy, brutal affair. It's not the clean, swift snap of the neck you might imagine. It's a slow, agonizing strangulation, the body twitching and struggling for long, terrible minutes. It is a death designed to be ugly, to be frightening. The shadow of that noose falls over everything. When the guard brings your water, you see the rope he uses to lower the pail. When you try to sleep, you feel a phantom tightness around your throat. The knowledge of your impending, unavoidable death is a form of torture all its own, and it's one that the legal system of the time used with chilling effectiveness. Some legal historians argue that the public, brutal nature of medieval punishment was a necessity. Without a professional police force, the state relied on terror and spectacle to maintain control. It was a way of writing the law on the bodies of the condemned for all to see. But for you trapped in this cell, it feels like nothing more than gratuitous cruelty. The verdict is already in. This waiting, this counting down of the days, is just a way of making you suffer before you die. You press your face against the cold, slimy wall. The stone feels as unyielding as your fate. You think of your family. What will happen to them? Will the Lord punish them for your crime? Will they be cast out? The guilt is a heavy, suffocating blanket. You have not just doomed yourself, you have brought ruin upon everyone you love. In the depths of this despair, a tiny, almost forgotten memory sparks. The peddler's story. The weaver who read a book. The neck verse. For a moment, the image is clear in your mind. A man standing in a courtroom, a book in his hand, a judge's angry face. Then, just as quickly, the image dissolves. It's a fool's dream. A fairy tale. What good is a story about a secret door when you are locked in a dungeon with no windows? The hope it offers is so thin, so ridiculously out of reach. It feels like a mockery. You are a peasant who can't tell a letter A from a horseshoe. The shadow of the noose is real. The neck verse is just a story, and stories won't save you now. Just when you surrender to the blackest despair, something changes. A sound from the corner of the cell. A dry, rasping cough, followed by a voice. A voice you have not heard in all the days or weeks you've been here. They'll hang you, you know. The words are not cruel, just stated as a matter of fact. They come from the huddled shape in the corner. You are so startled you almost jump. You turn towards the sound, peering into the gloom. The justices won't even listen to your side. The voice continues, scratchy from disuse. A peasant, a reeve, a stone. The story writes itself. They'll have you tried, sentenced, and swinging before lunch. You find your own voice, a croak. Who are you? The shape stirs, and for the first time, the man turns his face towards the sliver of light from the door. He is older than you, perhaps 40. His face is thin and pale from a dungeon gloom, covered in a patchy, dirty beard, but it's his eyes that capture you. They are intelligent, cynical, and unnervingly sharp, even in the darkness. He wears the tattered remnants of what might have once been a clerk's robe. Aye, he says with a sigh that seems to carry the weight of 1,000 disappointments. And what happens when a man of God develops a taste for loaded dice and other men's wives? My name is Benedict, and I am, or was, a clerk. A clerk. The word hangs in the foul air. A real one. A man who can read. What are you doing in here? You ask. Shouldn't you be in the bishop's prison? A bitter, humorless laugh escapes his lips. Ah, yes. The benefit of clergy. A wonderful little loophole. Unfortunately, it is a card you can only play once. He gestures to his right hand, and in the dim light you can just make out a dark, ugly scar on the fleshy part of his thumb. A brand. I had my benefit years ago for a misunderstanding over some church funds. This time for fornicating with the bishop's own niece. They decided to let the king's justice take its course. Poetic, isn't it? He seems to find a grim amusement in his own downfall. He has the weary cynicism of a man who has played the game and lost, but still remembers all the rules. He studies you for a long moment. I've been watching you. You have the look of a man who has run out of all conventional options. The perfect student. Student, you scoff. Student of what? How to die. Perhaps Benedict says, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Or perhaps the student of a very specific, very short piece of literature. Tell me, boy, have you ever heard of the Miserere Deus? The latter means nothing to you, but the tone in his voice, the sudden intensity, makes the hair on your arms stand up. It triggers the memory, the peddler's story, the neck verse. I heard a story once, you stammer, about a man who saved his own neck by reading from a book. Benedict's eyes gleam. It is not a story. It is the most beautiful loophole God ever saw fit to grant a sinner. The 51st Psalm. The traditional test. If a man can read the first verse, the court must, by law and custom, concede he is a cleric. And if he is a cleric, they cannot hang him. He leans forward, his voice barely audible. They cannot hang you. The hope you had dismissed as a child's fantasy suddenly rushes back, so powerful it makes you dizzy. But, I can't read. I don't know the first thing about letters. Of course you don't, he says, waving a dismissive hand. If you could, you wouldn't have been stupid enough to bash a reeve's head in at a public market. But that, he adds, a sly, calculating look on his face, is a technicality. You don't need to learn to read, not really. You just need to learn to perform. You need to memorize the sounds, and you need to recognize the shapes. It's a trick. A desperate, life-saving magic trick, and I am the only magician in this rotten little theater. He sees the flicker of hope in your eyes and his cynical mouth hardens again. Don't think this is an act of charity. I am a fallen man, not a saint. I am bored. And you are interesting. Your desperation is a canvas. And besides, he says, settling back into his corner, if you are to have any chance at all, you will need a friend on the outside. Someone to procure certain materials. And if you succeed, you will owe me a debt. A very large debt. You don't care. The cost of the debt. It means nothing. He has just offered you the one thing you thought was gone forever. A chance. A slim, almost impossible chance, but it is there. A tiny key has appeared in the lock of your cage. The dynamic in the cell has shifted entirely. You are no longer just a condemned prisoners waiting for death. You are a teacher and a student, a cynical, disgraced master and his desperate, illiterate apprentice. And your classroom is a stinking dungeon. Your subject is a single sentence, and your final exam could be the difference between a short walk to the gallows and a long, complicated life. Your lessons begin in the oppressive darkness with nothing but Benedict's voice. He starts not with letters, but with the concept. The grand, audacious lie you are about to build. You must understand you'll be playing on, he whispers, his voice a low rumble in the cell. Imagine two great, hungry beasts, the crown and the church. For centuries, they have been fighting over the same meal, power. The king wants to be the absolute master of every soul in his kingdom. The Pope wants the same. The result is a messy, unwritten truce, full of grey areas and overlapping jurisdictions. The benefit of clergy is the deepest, greyest part of that swamp. He explains that the king's judges, the men who will be coming for you, hate this loophole. They see it as an insult to their authority, a way for criminals to slip through their fingers. They will be looking for any excuse to deny your claim. Benedict warns, you cannot hesitate. You cannot seem uncertain. You must, for one brief, shining moment, become a clerk in your heart. But how? You ask, the sheer impossibility of it weighing on you. I'm a farmer's son. I smell of mud and fear, not ink and incense. Details, he scoffs. First, the claim itself. When the judge asks for your plea, you will not say guilty. You will say, clericus sum, postuello beneficium cleri. It means, I am a cleric, I demand the benefit of clergy. Say it. He makes you repeat the Latin phrase over and over again. The words feel strange and alien in your mouth, like stones. You stumble over the syllables. Clericus sum, postuello. No, no, he corrects impatiently. It must flow. It must sound as if you've been waiting your whole life to say it. This is not a plea for mercy. It is a demand for your rights. You are not a peasant begging for a scrap. You are a man of the church reminding a secular court of its limits. He explains the two-faced nature of the law with a bitter clarity. The king's law, the common law, is what you've known your whole life. It's practical, brutal, and concerned with earthly matters. Its ultimate sanction is the gallows. The church's law, canon law, is a different universe. It's a labyrinth of theology, scripture, and precedent. Its goal is the salvation of the soul, not the punishment of the body. When you claim clergy, Benedict explains, you are essentially attempting to jump from one river to another. The king's court wants to drown you. The church's court wants to wash you, and then perhaps lock you in a very damp room for a few years. It is, you will agree, the better option. He tells you about the purgation that would await you if you succeed. In the bishop's court, you wouldn't be retried for the reeve's death. That case would be closed. Instead, you'd face a different kind of trial. You would have to find a certain number of compurgators, earth helpers, usually other clerks willing to swear on a holy relic that they believe you are telling the truth when you say you are innocent of any crime worthy of death. It's a farce, of course, Benedict says with a cynical smile. A bit of legal theatre. The church doesn't want to execute its own. As long as you can find a few willing purger or assent for a small fee, you always can. You'll be declared cleansed of your sin. They'll brand you so you can't pull the trick again, and then they'll either hold you for a while or, if they need the cell space, let you go. This is the most confusing part for you. So, they know you're guilty but they let you go. Welcome to the magnificent hypocrisy of the law, my boy, Benedict whispers. The king's court knows you're guilty and wants you dead. The church court knows you're guilty and wants you alive because every soul, even a stained one, belongs to them. It's not about justice. It is, and always has been, about jurisdiction. It's a tug-of-war for your miserable soul, and your only job is to make sure you end up on the winning side. The concept is both terrifying and exhilarating. He is teaching you to see the world not as a set of immutable rules, but as a series of competing systems, each with its own weaknesses and loopholes to be exploited. It's a deeply cynical worldview, born of his own fall from grace, but for you, it's the only philosophy that offers any hope. The academic question of how this legal duality came to be, whether it was a legacy of the Great Street, Thomas Becket's martyrdom for church rights, or simply a slow, organic power struggle, is a debate for scholars in comfortable libraries. For you in the cold, stinking dark, the only thing that matters is the practical application. You are learning that the law is not a monolithic cliff face, impossible to scale. It is a poorly built wall, full of loose stones and hidden handholds, if only you know where to look. You spend hours, or what feels like hours, just practicing that one mutton sentence. You say it until your throat is raw, until the foreign sounds start to feel natural. Benedict is a harsh teacher, correcting your pronunciation, your posture, your tone, more arrogance. He'll hiss, "You are not asking. You are not just learning a line, you are learning a new identity, the first brick in the wall of your great, desperate lie. Now for the weapon itself, Benedict says one morning, his voice dropping to a low, reverent hush. The verse, the key that unlocks the door. Miserere me Deus, secundum magna in misi rocidoriem tuum. He recites the Latin, and even in the wretched squalor of your cell, the words have a strange melodic power. They sound like a prayer, which you suppose they are. It is the opening of the 51st Psalm, he explains, the ultimate prayer of a sinner begging for forgiveness. David's plea to God after he sinned with Bathsheba. Oh, the irony, he chuckles darkly. The most famous words of repentance in Christendom, used for centuries as a get-out-of-jail-free card by unrepentant thugs and thieves. The bishops hate it. They've tried to change the test verse, but tradition is a powerful thing. He tells you why this particular verse became the standard. It wasn't random. The psalm was a core part of the church's liturgy, a text that any true cleric would have known by heart. Its use as a test was, at first, a genuine attempt to separate the real clergy from the pretenders. But like any system, it was eventually figured out, its secrets reverse-engineered by the desperate. What was once a shield for the clergy became a sword for the cunning. Do you know what the words mean? He asks. You shake your head. Have mercy on me, O God, according to thy great mercy. He translates, his voice softening for a moment. It is beautiful, isn't it? A perfect sentiment for a man in your position. But you must forget the meaning. The meaning is a luxury you cannot afford. It will only distract you. For you, these are not words. They are a sequence of sounds. A psalm. He begins to break it down, syllable by syllable. Me se charerh, me e dehus. He makes you repeat it over and over again. Your tongue, accustomed to the blunt, simple sounds of your English dialect, struggles with the liquid flow of the Latin. The R's are hard, the vowels unfamiliar. No, not dhys, he snaps. It is not the sound a cow makes. Dehus, soft, like a sigh. This is your new reality. The world outside, with its sun and seasons, ceases to exist. Your entire universe shrinks to the space between you and Benedict, to the sounds he makes and your clumsy attempts to copy them. Hunger, cold, the stench of the cell, it all fades into the background, secondary to the monumental task of learning this single alien sentence. You practice in whispers hour after hour. When the guard is near the door, you fall silent, your heart pounding. The secrecy adds another layer of tension to the desperate enterprise. Benedict is relentless. He is a perfectionist. The ordinary who will test you, he explains, is not a fool. He's a man who has heard this verse mumbled, stuttered, and choked on by 100 desperate men. He can smell a fraud. Your pronunciation must be flawless. Not just accurate, but confident. He tells you a story of a thief he knew who tried to claim clergy. The man had memorized the verse perfectly, but when the moment came, his nerve failed him. He whispered the words, his eyes darting around the courtroom. The ordinary, a shrewd old priest, simply said, "Louder, I can't hear you." The thief tried again, his voice cracking. The ordinary shook his head and told the judge, "He does not read like a clerk." They hanged him an hour later. Confidence, Benedict repeats, his eyes boring into you in the darkness. You must look at the page as if it is an old friend. You must speak the words as if they are your own. You will not be a peasant trying to read. You will be a clerk, slightly annoyed at having to prove the obvious. The psychological weight of this is immense. He is not just teaching you a line, he's trying to instill in you the arrogance of the educated class. He's trying to perform a kind of alchemy, to turn your peasant lead into clerical gold, at least for a few crucial moments. The debate among historians about the neck verse often centers on its effectiveness. How many people truly got away with it? The court records are spotty. They might say a prisoner read his verse, but not how well he read it, or how much of a sham the whole procedure was. Was it a genuine test, or just a piece of legal theater that everyone, including the judge, tacitly agreed to perform? The truth probably varied wildly from court to court, judge to judge. It depended on the ordinary's mood, the egregiousness of the crime, and the political climate of the time. For you, these variables are terrifying. Your life depends on the subjective judgment of a man you've never met. All you can do is prepare. You lie down on the cold stone, but you don't sleep. You close your eyes and the words echo in your mind, a ghostly chant. Miserere mei, Deus, secundum magna em misericordiem tuam. The sinner's prayer. Your prayer. It is becoming a part of you, tattooed onto your memory. It is the only thing you have. Sound is not enough, Benedict declares one day, his tone shifting from tutor to conspirator. You need to see the beast you are meant to tame. You need the page. The idea is terrifying. How? We're in a stone box. No one can come in. No one needs to, Benedict says, a sly look on his face. This gale has a weakness. Every place does. It's run by a man named Hubert. He is lazy, underpaid, and has a fondness for cheap ale. More importantly, he has a daughter. He explains his plan. He has been hoarding a few of the small, dull coins he had on him when he was arrested. It's not much, but it might be enough. The next time the guard Hubert brings their food, Benedict will make a deal. Not for an escape. That would be too risky for the guard, but for a message to be delivered to Hubert's own daughter, a girl Benedict knows from his previous free life. She is a friend, he says, with a tone that suggests the word friend, is doing a lot of heavy lifting. She can read a little. More importantly, she owes me a favor, and she is not fond of her father. The next time the heavy shutter scrapes open, Benedict is ready. He speaks to Hubert in a low, persuasive tone. He doesn't beg or threaten. He speaks of a small debt he wishes to repay, a matter of honor. He talks about the girl. He shows the glint of a coin. You can't see Hubert's face, but you can hear the change in his breathing, the long pause of a man weighing greed against fear. Finally, you hear a grunt of assent. A small, dirty hand snakes through the opening, takes the coins and a small, folded scrap of cloth from Benedict, and then is gone. The waiting is excruciating. Has Hubert changed his mind? Was it a trick to get the coins? You pace the tiny cell, a knot of anxiety tightening in your stomach. Benedict, by contrast, seems perfectly calm, almost serene. He is back in his element, a player in a game of intrigue and manipulation. 2 days later it happens. The shutter slides open at an unusual time. It's not Hubert. It's a young woman, her face framed by the small opening. She has a nervous, defiant look in her eyes. It's Hubert's daughter. She doesn't speak. She just pushes something small and flat through the opening. It falls to the straw-covered floor. Then she's gone, the shut. Benedict scrambles for it like a starving man lunging for a crust of bread. He brings it back to his corner, his hands trembling slightly. It is a single sheet of parchment, torn from a book. It is stiff and smells of wax and old ink. Bring it to the light, he whispers, his voice filled with a strange reverence. You both crawl over to the sliver of daylight under the door. Benedict holds the page flat on the grimy floor. And you see them, the letters. It's the first time in your life you have ever truly looked at a piece of writing. To you, it's not a text. It's a drawing. A series of beautiful but utterly alien shapes. Black ink on a pale background. The letters are intricate, written in a formal, Gothic script. They are tall and spiky, full of sharp angles and dense, dark lines. There is a single large, ornate letter M at the beginning, decorated with reed ink and delicate, swirling patterns. It's a piece of art, and it's completely incomprehensible. This is a detail often lost in modern understanding. We see medieval script, and if we know Latin we can read it, but for an illiterate peasant, these forms were as foreign as the surface of the moon. It was a code, a secret language of the elite. To even see a page like this was a rarity. To be expected to decipher it was an absurdity. Look, Benedict says, his finger tracing the air just above the first word. This is your first landmark. The Great Redim, this is where your journey begins. This is Missouri, he points to the next shape, and this collection of spikes and curves, this is May. He walks you through the entire verse, not teaching you the letters, but the shapes of the words. He turns the abstract sounds you have memorized into concrete, visual anchors. See how Deus is a short word, proud and upright. And look at Misericordiem, this long, sprawling caterpillar of a word. You must learn the landscape of this page. The rise and fall of the letters. The spaces between the words. The rivers of white that flow through the black. You stare at the page until your eyes burn. You begin to trace the shapes with your finger, feeling the texture of the ink on the parchment. It feels alive, sacred. This single, smuggled page is the most precious thing you have ever touched. It is a map to a hidden country, the country of the living. And Benedict is your guide, teaching you to navigate its strange and beautiful geography, one black, spiky landmark at a time. The parchment changes everything. It transforms your lessons from a theoretical exercise into a practical, desperate craft. The cell is no longer just a prison. It's a secret workshop where you are forging the most audacious counterfeit of your life. Your new life is governed by the sliver of light under the door. For the few hours a day when the light is strong enough, you and Benedict huddle over the page. The rest of the time, in the near total darkness, you are forced to rely on memory, visualizing the shapes you have just studied. Benedict's method is painstakingly slow. Forget the alphabet, he insists. An alphabet is for scholars. You are a spy learning to recognize a single coded message. We will not learn letters. We will learn words as pictures. He starts with the easiest ones. Deus, he says, pointing to the four-letter word. God, it's short, strong. See the tall letter at the front, the D, like a sentinel, and the S at the end, like a little snake. This is Deus. When you see it, you say, Deus. You stare at the shape. Deus. To you, it's just a cluster of marks. But you try to see it as he does, a sentinel and a snake. You repeat the word, looking at the shape. Deus. Next, he points to me. Me. 2 letters, and M and an E. It looks like 2 little hills side by side. When you see the hills, you say, May. This is how it goes. You are not learning to read in any real sense. You are creating a set of visual cues, a mental map of this one specific verse. The long, sprawling word Misericordiem becomes the caterpillar. The opening word misery with its grand, decorated initial is the castle. You are not deciphering a code, you are memorizing a landscape. The struggle is immense. Your brain so adept at reading the signs of the natural world, the meaning of a cloud formation, the track of a deer, the health of a crop is completely unequipped for this task. The black squiggles on the page seem to swim before your eyes. They blur together. Sometimes, in frustration, you want to scream. It feels impossible. Benedict is a patient but firm master. He understands your struggle. Your mind is a field that has only ever been used to grow wheat, he tells you one afternoon as you stare blankly at the page. We are now trying to grow grapes in it. The soil is not used to the new seeds. It resists. But we must keep plowing. He invents little tricks to help you. He has you trace the words with your finger, again and again, trying to build a muscle memory that connects the physical shape to the sound. He breaks the longer words into chunks. Misericordiem, he says, tapping out the rhythm on the stone floor. It's a long road, but it is made of small steps. There are moments of breakthrough. One morning, as you look at the page, you suddenly see it. The 2 little hills. May, you say, pointing. By rare, genuine smile touches Benedict's lips. Yes, he says, you see. The field is not barren. The seed has sprouted. That small victory fuels you for days. You begin to see other landmarks. The sentinel and the snake, the caterpillar. They slowly emerge from the meaningless jumble of ink, like constellations appearing in a night sky. The nature of medieval literacy itself is a topic of much debate among scholars. For many, even for those who were considered literate, reading was not the silent, internal process we know today. It was often a slow, oral activity, a process of sounding out the words. Full fluency was rare. Many parish priests, for instance, were only semi-literate. They could recite the liturgy from memory and recognize the passages in their prayer books, but might have struggled to read a new text from scratch. In a strange way, the performance you are learning to give is not as far from the reality of the time as you might think. You are learning to be, in effect, a typical low-level cleric. But the fear of failure is a constant companion. What if the book they give you is different? What if the letters are a slightly different shape? Unlikely, Benedict reassures you, though you can hear a sliver of doubt in his own voice. The court psalter is usually an old, well-used book. The script will be formal, standard, but you must be prepared for small variations. That is why you are not just memorizing a picture. You are memorizing the sequence, the rhythm of the words. The page itself is becoming worn. The parchment is softened and smudged from your constant, anxious handling. It's a fragile, precious, and illegal thing. Every time you hear the guard's footsteps approaching, you quickly hide it, tucking it into a loose stone in the wall that Benedict has found. You are changing. The long hours of intense mental focus, the new way of thinking, are carving new pathways in your mind. You are still a peasant, still a condemned man, but you are also becoming something else. A keeper of a secret, a student of a forbidden art. You look at your hands and they are still the hands of a farmer. But in your mind, you hold a fragile, shimmering key, forged in darkness from the shape of salvation. You have the shapes. You have the sounds. Now, you must put them together into a seamless performance. The final stage of your training is rehearsal. We have 2 weeks, Benedict says, his voice grim. The fortnight the guard mentioned is half gone. The justices are on their way. From now until the trial, we do nothing but practice the performance. From the moment you stand before the judge to the moment the ordinary closes the book, your tiny cell becomes a stage. Benedict plays the part of the judge, the jury, and the intimidating court official. He is a surprisingly good actor, his voice shifting from the bored drone of a court clerk to the booming, imperious tone of a high-born justice. You are brought before the court, he begins, his voice echoing in the small space. You are in chains. You are filthy. You smell. The crowd is mocking you. The judge looks at you with contempt. He asks for your plea. What do you say? You take a deep breath, trying to summon the arrogance he has been drilling into you. Clericus sum, post you elo beneficium clara, you say. Weak, he barks. Your voice trembled. You sounded like a boy asking for an apple. Again, from the gut. You are not begging, you are informing him of a fact he seems to have overlooked. You try again, your voice louder, firmer. Better, he concedes. Now the ordinary is summoned. He approaches you. He is holding the book. It is a large, heavy tome bound in leather. He radiates smug authority. He is hoping you will fail. He opens the book. The crowd goes silent. He points a bony finger at the verse. What do you do? I read it, you say. No, Benedict snaps. You do not read it. First, you look at the page. You let your eyes scan the verse. A brief, confident glance. Not a desperate search. You are not seeing it for the first time. You are reaqua inking yourself with an old, familiar prayer. You might even permit yourself a small weary sigh, as if this whole procedure is a tedious formality. He makes you practice the look, the confident glance, the weary sigh. It feels ridiculous, like a child's game, but you do it. You practice in the dark, imagining the scene. Then comes the recitation. He makes you stand, even in the cramped cell, to mimic the posture you will have in court. Hold your head up. Your eyes on the page. Now, speak the words. Not too fast. Not too slow. Let there be a rhythm, a cadence. This is poetry after all. Give it the respect it deserves. You begin to recite the verse, your eyes closed, picturing the smuggled page in your mind's eye. Miserere Deus. He stops you halfway through. You're just saying the words. You are a string of beads. I want you to be a river. There must be flow. The words must connect. Secundum magna emisi rocidori tuam. It is one thought. According to thy great mercy. Feel the shape of the phrase. It's the hardest part of the entire process. You are not just a machine repeating sounds. You have to imbue them with a semblance of meaning, a fluency you do not possess. It's the difference between a child spelling out a word and an adult reading a sentence. You practice until your throat is raw, until the Latin sounds are more familiar to you than your own name. Benedict drills you relentlessly. He tries to trick you. In the middle of your recitation, he'll shout, "What does that word mean?" to see if he can break your concentration. He'll try to rush you to distract you. The psychological pressure is building. The date of the trial is no longer an abstract dread, it's a looming deadline. Every scrape of the guard's boot outside the door makes you jump. Is it time? One evening, in the depths of the night, you admit your greatest fear. Benedict, what if I forget? What if I stand there and the book opens and my mind is just empty? Benedict is silent for a long time. The cynical, mocking tone is gone from his voice when he finally speaks. That is the fear of every performer, he says softly. The fear of the empties that fear for you. All we can do is build a path of stones through the swamp with your terror. We lay each stone with practice, with repetition. The path is there. When the time comes, you must trust that your feet will find it. He adds one last, crucial piece of advice. When he points to the verse, find the castle. Find that big reedem. That is your anchor. Let your eyes lock onto it. Once you have it, the rest will follow. Say the first word, misery. The sound of it will call forth the next. It is a chain. Your only job is to find the first link. The final days are a blur of whispered Latin and frantic mental rehearsals. You have done all you can. The trick has been prepared. The props are memorized. But it all rests on the performance of a single, terrified actor, on a stage where the critics don't just write a bad review, they tie a noose. You are no longer just a peasant who killed a man. You are a desperate scholar of a single sentence, about to take the most important exam of your life. There is one last thing, Benedict says, his voice low and serious. The final day has arrived. You can hear the sounds of unusual activity outside, the tramp of many feet, the kneading of horses. The justices have come. My payment. You stare at him. In the frantic rush of your lessons, the debt you agreed to has been a distant thought. Now it is here, real and unavoidable. I have nothing, you say, gesturing around the empty cell. If this works, I will still have nothing. Oh, you will have your life, he counters, a flicker of his old cynical self returning. And a life is a valuable commodity. I do not want money, I want a promise. He leans closer, his eyes intense. If you walk out of that courtroom and I do not, you will owe me. My case is hopeless. The bishop wants me gone. The king's men want me punished. I will hang. But I have a sister. She lives in a town by the sea, a place called Lynn. She is a good woman. She does not deserve the shame of my death. She believes I am in a monastery in the north seeking repentance. He presses a small, smooth stone into your hand. It's a simple, grey pebble worn smooth by a river or the sea. Take this to her, he says. Tell her you were with me. Tell her that I died, peacefully, that I found God in the end. Tell her I was praying for her. Lie to her, boy. Lie beautifully. Give her a good death to remember, not the ugly one I am going to have. That is the price of my lessons. A kind of story for my sister. You clench the stone in your fist. The weight of his request is heavier than any coin. He has spent weeks saving your life. And in return, he is asking you to craft a gentle ending for his own story, an ending he will never see. It is a strange and deeply human bargain, made in the filth and despair of a dungeon. It's a final act of manipulation, but for the first time, it is aimed at creating comfort, not gaining an advantage. I promise, you whisper. The words feel like a sacred vow. Good, he says, leaning back, the transaction complete. Then there is nothing more to be said. All that is left is for you to walk the path we have built. The sound of heavy boots and jangling keys approaches your cell door. This is it. The guard is not alone. You can hear the low murmur of other voices. Your heart begins to pound a frantic, suffocating rhythm against your ribs. You feel the blood drain from your face. The moment that you have rehearsed endlessly in your mind is now terrifyingly real. The heavy bolt is thrown. The door groans open, flooding the cell with the bright, painful light of torches. Several alarmed men stand there, their faces hardened emotionals. One of them, clearly in charge, holds a scroll. He reads your name. You are summoned to face the king's justice. They haul you to your feet. As they are about to drag you out, you look back at Benedict. He is sitting in his corner, his face obscured by shadow. He gives you a single, almost imperceptible nod. A final gesture of encouragement from a fallen master to his terrified student. Then you are pulled out of the cell into a corridor teeming with activity. The sudden light, the noise, the movement. It's a sensory shock after weeks of darkness and silence. Your legs are weak, and you stumble as they march you down the corridor. You are not the only one. Other prisoners are being dragged from their cells, a miserable procession of the doomed. They are men like you, caught in the unforgiving gears of the law. Their faces are a mixture of terror, defiance, and utter resignation. You are just one among many, a single case on a long and bloody list for the day. This is a crucial, often overlooked aspect of the assize courts. They were an efficient, almost industrial, system of justice. The judges had to get through dozens of cases in a day. They had no time for lengthy arguments or deep investigations. They relied on the pretrial work of the local juries and coroners. The trial itself was often just a swift, brutal confirmation of a foregone conclusion. Your only hope is to throw a wrench into those fast-moving gears, to present a problem the court doesn't want to deal with. They lead you out of the gale and into the daylight. You have to shield your eyes against the glare of the sun. The air, fresh and cool, feels amazing on your skin, a reminder of the world you are about to lose. A small crowd has already gathered, eager for the grim entertainment of the trials. They jeer and point as you are led past. You are no longer a person. You are part of the show. They march you towards the great hall of the local castle, where the court is being held. With every step, Benedict's words echo in your mind, confidence. You are informing them of a fact. You clutch the smooth, cool stone in your pocket. A promise to be kept. It is a strange anchor in the swelling chaos of your fear, a reminder that this is not just about your life, but about his memory too. You take a deep breath. The performance is about to begin. The great hall is cavernous and intimidating. The ceiling is high, lost in shadow, held up by massive wooden beams. Sunlight streams in through tall, narrow windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The room is packed with people. Onlookers, local dignitaries, clerks, and guards all crowd the space. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, damp wool, and fear. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, sit the justices. There are 3 of them draped in fur-lined robes, their faces impassive and stern. They look less like men and more like monuments to the laws and yielding power. The central judge, a man with a long, grey beard and cold, intelligent eyes, seems to be in charge. This is the man you must fool. You are shoved into a line with other prisoners. You watch as the man before you is brought to the platform. His crime is read out: sheep stealing. The jury foreman is asked to confirm the accusation. The judge asks the man for his plea. The man, trembling, begins to ramble, to make excuses. The judge cuts him off with a flick of his wrist. Guilty, he declares. The entire process takes less than 2 minutes. The man is dragged away weeping. The efficiency is terrifying. It's a machine designed for conviction. Then it's your turn. Bring forth the prisoner. A clerk calls out, his voice flat and bored. 2 guards grab your arms and haul you forward. You stand before the platform, blinking in the torchlight that surrounds it. You feel hundreds of eyes on you. You can hear the whispers of the crowd. That's the one who killed the Reeve. The clerk unrolls a scroll and reads the charge in a rapid, monotonous voice, a mixture of Latin and Norman French that you barely understand, but you hear the key words. With malice and forethought, did strike down. The central judge leans forward slightly, his gaze fixing on you. His eyes are like chips of ice. You have heard the charge, he says, his voice surprisingly soft, yet carrying to every corner of the hall. This is the moment. The first stone in the path. Your throat is dry. Your heart is a frantic drum. You can feel the sweat trickling down your back. You force yourself to meet the judge's gaze. You take a breath, and you speak the words that Benedict drilled into you, trying to fill them with an arrogance you do not feel. Clericus sum, postuello beneficium clerai. Your voice is a little shaky, but it is clear and loud enough. A surprised murmur ripples through the hall. You have departed from the script. You have thrown the wrench into the machine. The judge does not look surprised. He looks annoyed. He leans back in his great chair, his fingers drumming silently on the wooden armrest. He has seen this play before. You claim to be a cleric. He asks, a note of deep skepticism in his voice. He looks you up and down, taking in your filthy peasant clothes, your matted hair, your calloused hands. You do not look like a man of the church. You do not look like a man of the church. You look like a field hand who has been sleeping in a ditch. A few sycophants in the crowd laugh. Your face burns with humiliation. But you remember Benedict's warning. Do not be provoked. Stick to the role. Appearance can be deceiving, my lord, you say, amazed that the words are coming out of your mouth. The judge's eyes narrow. He is testing you, trying to see if you will back down. When you don't, he lets out a long, weary sigh. This is an unwelcome complication, a delay in his busy schedule. He turns to the clerk. Is the ordinary present? The clerk nods and calls out a name. Aim and detaches himself from the side of the hall and walks towards the platform. He is a priest, thin and stooped with a sour, pinched face. He carries himself with an air of self-importance. This is the ordinary, the gatekeeper, the man who holds your life in his hands. He looks at you with open disdain. He sees you as you are, a common criminal trying to use a sacred privilege to escape justice. His entire demeanor says he will take great pleasure in exposing you as a fraud. Well, Master Ordinary, the judge says, his voice heavy with sarcasm, we have another scholar before us. A man of letters who, in a moment of distraction, appears to have caved in a reed's skull. Be so good as to determine if his claim has merit. The ordinary bows slightly to the judge, then turns his cold gaze on you. Bring me the book, he commands a junior clerk. The great hall falls silent. The shuffling and whispering dies down. Everyone leans forward, eager to witness the test. This is the real drama they came for. The intellectual duel between the sour-faced priest and the dirty peasant. You are no longer just a murderer. You are a contender. And as the heavy, leather-brown psalter is brought forward, you can feel the weight of every single one of those silent, staring eyes. The ordinary takes the heavy book. He handles it with a possessive reverence, as if it is an extension of his own authority. He doesn't open it randomly. He knows exactly where to go. He licks his thumb and parts the stiff parchment pages with practiced ease. The book opens to the 51st Psalm, the next verse. He walks down from the platform and stands directly in front of you. He is so close you can smell the stale incense on his robes. He holds the book up, open, so you can see the page, and your blood runs cold. It is not the same. The script is different. The smuggled page from Benedict was in a neat, formal Gothic book hand. This page is written in an older, more rounded script. The letters are familiar, yet strangely distorted, like seeing a face you know in a warped mirror. The beautiful, decorated M you had memorized, the castle, that was meant to be your anchor, is simpler here, less ornate. Panic, cold and absolute, floods your veins. The landscape you memorized is gone. This is an alien country. The ordinary sees the flicker of terror in your eyes. A small, cruel smile touches the corner of his lips. He has you. He points a long, bony finger at the start of the verse. Read, he commands, his voice like the scrape of a tombstone. Your mind is a white, roaring blank. The sounds, the shapes, the weeks of practice, all of it has vanished, consumed by a tidal wave of fear. You stand there mute, the silence of the hall pressing in on you. You can hear your own heart, a frantic, doomed bird beating against the cage of your ribs. This is it. This is how it ends. The thief who was hanged because his nerve failed him. You are that thief. And then a voice in your head. Benedict's voice, calm and cynical. The path is there. You must trust that your feet will find it. You force yourself to look away from the alien letters and into the ordinary smug face. You take a breath, a shaky, desperate breath, and you decide to gamble everything on one last, audacious piece of theater. You squint at the page, as if in mild annoyance. "My Lord Ordinary," you say, your voice dripping with a false, scholarly patience. "The light in this hall is quite poor. And this copy, the scribe's hand is regrettably provincial." You have bought yourself a second, an instant. You look back at the page, not as a panicked peasant, but as the arrogant clerk you are pretending to be. You ignore the individual letters that are confusing you. You look for the rhythm, the shape of the words you memorized. And you see it, a short word, a long word, another short one. Deus, secundum, magnaem. The pattern is there, even if the details are different. And you find your first stone in the path. You open your mouth, not knowing what will come out, and you begin to recite the verse from pure memory, from the endless hours of whispered practice in the dark. Miserere me Deus, secundum magna emisi rocidoriem tuum. The words come out, not as a stuttered plea, but as a smooth, rhythmic flow. You are not reading the page. You are reciting the song you learned, your eyes simply resting on the book as if it were the source. You are performing the greatest lie of your life. The ordinary's smug smile falters. He stares at you, his eyes wide with disbelief. It is impossible. This filthy peasant is reciting the verse with the fluency of a seasoned priest. You finish the verse, the last word hanging in the dead silent hall. You look up from the book and meet the ordinary stunned gaze. You even allow yourself a small, condescending smile, as if to say, was there ever any doubt? The ordinary is beaten. He slowly closes the book, the sound of the heavy cover thudding shut echoing like a gavel. He turns to the judge, his face a mask of confusion and defeat. He reads, he says, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Magit ut clericus. He reads as a clerk. A collective sigh, a gasp of astonishment, sweeps through the crowd. You have done it. You have faced the beast in its lair and you have won. You are still trembling, but you stand tall. The judge stares at you, his expression unreadable. Then he bangs his fist on the table. The prisoner has proved his clergy. He is forfeit to the church. Take him away. You are led from the great hall of the castle, your hands still bound, but your heart a chaotic mix of terror and elation. The walk back to the gale is different this time. The crowd that jeered at you on the way in now looks at you with a kind of grudging respect. You are no longer just another condemned felon. You are the man who read the verse. A whisper follows you, a new title. You are thrown back into the same cell. The darkness feels different now, less like a tomb and more like a waiting room. The first part of the plan has worked. You have jumped from one river to another, and for now, at least, you are not drowning. But what of Benedict? You search the gloom, your eyes slowly adjusting. The cell is empty. His corner is vacant. A cold dread begins to creep over you, replacing the adrenaline of the trial. You call his name, a hoarse whisper. Only silence answers. You spend the next few hours, or perhaps it's a day, in an agony of uncertainty. Has he been taken to his own trial? Is he already gone? The thought is a heavy weight. You clutch the smooth stone in your pocket, the promise you made to him. Later, the guard, Hubert, brings your ration of bread and water. His attitude towards you has changed completely. There is a new, almost fearful respect in his eyes. You are no longer just a common prisoner. You are something other, something touched by the strange power of the church. Where is the other one? You ask, your voice tight. The clerk, Benedict. Hubert shrugs, not meeting your eyes. His case was swift. The bishop sent word. No purgation. He was handed back to the king's men this morning. He pauses, then adds, the gallows on the hill has a new tenant. The words hang in the darkness. He's gone. While you were preparing for your performance, his fate was sealed. While you were stumbling through your verse, he was walking his last steps. The teacher is dead. The student lives. The irony is so bitter it feels like bile in your throat. He saved your life, and you could do nothing for him. Nothing except keep your promise. The next day, A different kind of visitor comes to your cell. Not a guard, but two men in the simple brown robes of the bishop's retinue. They are unarmed, their faces stern but not overtly hostile. The bishop's court has claimed you, one says. You are to be transferred to the ecclesiastical prison. They unbind your wrists. The freedom from the ropes is a small but profound relief. They led you out of the king's gale for the last time. As you walk through the town, you see the gallows on the hill in the distance. A single dark shape hangs from it, turning slowly in the wind. You look away, your stomach churning. Your new prison is a stark contrast to the old one. It's a single, secure room in the cellar of a building owned by the church near the cathedral. It is still a prison, but the differences are stark. It's clean, or at least cleaner. The floor is stone, but it's dry. There is a high barred window that lets in a sliver of genuine daylight and fresh air. The food is better coarse bread, but fresh, and a thin vegetable soup that tastes like heaven after weeks of pottage and water. You are left alone. The solitude is a blessing and a curse. It gives you time to think, to process the whirlwind of the last few days. But it also gives you time to mourn. You sit by the window, holding the smooth stone, thinking of Benedict and the sister in Lynn, who will never know the truth of his end. After a week, you are summoned before the bishop's court. It is held not in a great hall but in a small, quiet chapel. The atmosphere is completely different. There are no crowds, no shouting. The judge is the bishop himself, an old man with tired, wise eyes. He sits not on a high throne, but in a simple wooden chair. The procedure, as Benedict predicted, is a piece of theatre. It is called purgation. The bishop explains that while the king's court found you guilty of a felonious act, the church is concerned with the state of your soul. You must now purge yourself of the accusation by swearing your innocence on a holy relic, and you must be supported by compuagators, oath helpers, who will swear they believe you. This is the part that once seemed impossible. How could a friendless peasant find oath helpers? But Benedict's cynical wisdom proves true. The court provides them. Two shabby-looking junior clerks, their faces bored, are produced. They have never seen you before. For a small fee paid from the court's own see offers a charitable donation. They are willing to swear to your good character. A silver box, said to contain a finger bone of a forgotten saint, is brought out. You place your hand upon it. You look the bishop in the eye and swear that you did not act with malice, that the reeve's death was a tragic accident. Your voice, which trembled in the king's court, is steady now. You are a far better liar than you were a few weeks ago. The two clerks then place their hands on the relic and swear that they have known you for years and that your oath is true. The whole thing is a solemn, well-rehearsed farce. The bishop listens patiently, then declares you purged of your crime in the eyes of God and the church. Justice has been served, or rather jurisdiction has been satisfied. The church has successfully defended its right to judge one of its own, even a counterfeit one. The great beast of the church has won its tug of war against the great beast of the crown, and you, the rope, have survived. The bishop's declaration of your purgation is not the end of the matter. You are not simply set free. The church has saved you from the king's noose, but you are now their property, their responsibility, and a final price must be paid. A permanent mark must be made. You are taken from the chapel to a small adjoining chamber. It is bare except for a table, a chair, and a small charcoal brazier glowing in the corner. The two men from the bishop's retinue are there, their faces impassive. One of them is stoking the brazier, in which a small iron rod with a flattened, circular tip rests, its end glowing a dull, angry red. This is the final act of your legal transformation, the branding. The fear, which had receded, comes rushing back. This is a different kind of fear from the terror of the gallows. It's a primal, immediate fear of pain and disfigurement. One of the men explains the purpose, his voice devoid of emotion. You have claimed the benefit of clergy. The law allows this mercy only once, so that you and all other courts may know that your claim has been spent. You will be marked. He specifies the mark. An M for murderer, or perhaps a T for thief, was a common brand for secular justice, often placed on the cheek or forehead for all to see. But the church's mark is different. It is subtler, more specific. You are to be branded on the bone of your left thumb. It's a place that can be easily hidden, but also easily revealed in a courtroom. It is the mark of the clerk convict. One of the men grabs your left arm, his grip like iron. The other uses a pair of tongs to lift the glowing iron from the brazier. The heat radiates from it, and you can feel the warmth on your face even from a few feet away. You try to pull back, but the man holding you is too strong. He forces your left hand open, palm up, and presses your thumb flat against the wooden table. Your heart is hammering. You try to summon the stoicism you've learned, but your body betrays you. The man with the brand approaches. You can hear the faint hiss of the hot iron as it moves through the air. You smell the scorched metal. You close your eyes and brace yourself. The pain is sharp, shocking, and absolute. A white-hot agony that shoots up your entire arm. It is a pain beyond anything you have ever known. A scream tears from your throat, raw and involuntary. The smell of your own burning flesh fills your nostrils, a sickening, unforgettable scent. It is over in a second, but the pain lingers, a deep, throbbing fire in your hand. The man releases you, and you cradle your hand to your chest, gritting your teeth against the waves of agony. You look down. On the fleshy pad of your thumb is a perfect, dark circle, a raw, weeping wound that will eventually become a permanent, puckered scar. This branding, while seeming like a cruel punishment, is a fascinating part of the legal loophole's history. It was officially introduced by the English crown in the late 15th century to try and curb abuse of the clergy benefit, but the practice existed informally long before that. It was a compromise. The king's courts couldn't execute a cleric, but they could insist on a system to prevent repeat offenders. The scar on your thumb is a testament to that centuries-long power struggle between church and state. It is a symbol of a legal truce written on your own body. You are given a rough cloth and some foul-smelling salve to put on the burn. The pain is immense, but beneath it, there is a strange, dark sense of finality. It is done. The last toll has been paid. You are kept in the bishop's prison for another month. The official reason is to allow you to do penance for your sins. The practical reason is to allow your brand to heat to let the local anger over the reeve's death cool down. Your life becomes a simple monastic routine. You are given chores, sweeping floors, tending the small kitchen garden. You eat simple food. You sleep on a clean straw pallet. It is a strange, suspended existence, a life in limbo. You are no longer the person you were. You are not the frightened peasant boy from the village. You are not the desperate fugitive in the woods. You are not even the terrified prisoner in the gale. The experience has hollowed you out and refilled you with something new, something harder and more complicated. The world is no longer a place of simple truths, but a labyrinth of rules and tricks, of power and performance. And you carry the map of that labyrinth on your hand. The scar on your thumb is a constant reminder. It is a mark of shame, but it is also a mark of survival. It is the price you paid for your life. It is Benedict's final lesson, etched in your flesh. A permanent reminder that you are a man who stood at the gates of death and talked his way out. One morning, the door to your cell opens and one of the bishop's men stands there. You are free to go, he says, with no more ceremony than if he were telling you it was time to sweep the floor. Freedom. The word sounds foreign, unreal. After months of confinement, the idea of simply walking out is disorienting. You have no possessions other than the tattered clothes you were arrested in on the smooth, grey stone in your pocket. You have nowhere to go. You step out of the ecclesiastical building and into the bustling streets of the cathedral city. The noise, the colors, the sheer number of people is overwhelming. You are a stranger here. You can never go back to your village. To them, you are the man who killed the reeve and escaped the gallows through some dark, clerical magic. You would be met with fear and hatred. Your family, you realize with a pang of guilt, is probably better off if they believe you are dead. You are adrift. A man without a past or a future. You have a life, but you don't have a place. This was the reality for many who successfully pleaded clergy. They were saved from death, but cast out from their old lives, becoming a new kind of outcast. Not an outlaw to be hunted, but a permanent exile. You wander the city for a few days, surviving on your wits, a skill you never knew you had until recently. You find odd jobs, unloading a cart at the market, mucking out a stable. It's grueling work, but it earns you enough for a loaf of bread and a spot to sleep in a corner of a crowded thoroughfare. During the day, you find yourself drawn to the parts of the city where clerks and scribes gather, near the cathedral or the law courts. You watch them from a distance, these men of letters. You see them reading, writing, arguing over documents. They are the members of the club you pretended to join. And you realize something profound. Benedict's lessons have given you more than just your life. They have planted a seed of curiosity. You start to truly look at the writing you see everywhere in the city, on shop signs, on public notices, on the gravestones in the churchyard. Before, they were just meaningless squiggles. Now, you can sometimes pick out a letter you recognize from your single smuggled page. You see the proud, upright D. You see the M that looks like the hills. It's like being in a foreign country where you only know a dozen words, but even that small knowledge makes the world feel a little less alien. You want to learn more. The desire is a quiet, persistent take. The secret art that saved you is no longer just a tool. It has become a source of fascination. One afternoon, you see an old, stooped man sitting at a small stall near the city gate. He's a public scribe, a letter writer for the illiterate masses. For a small fee, he writes letters for merchants, reads contracts for farmers, and pens love notes for hopeful suitors. He has a kind, tired face and ink-stained fingers. For a week, you save every spare coin you earn. You eat less, sleeping in cold rallies, until you have enough. You approach his stall, your heart pounding with a different kind of fear than you've ever known. It's the fear of asking for something you don't deserve. You hold out your small handful of coins. "Teach me," you say, your voice barely a whisper. The scribe looks up from his work, his brow furrowed. He looks at your rough clothes, your peasant's hands. "Teach you what, boy?" "To read," you say, "to really read." He scoffs. "I don't have time to teach vagrants their letters. Go on, be off with you." You don't move. You hold out your left hand, palm up, and show him the scar on your thumb. The scribe's eyes widen. He stares at the mark for a long moment. His expression changes from annoyance to a complex mixture of pity, curiosity, and a strange sort of professional kinship. He recognizes the brand. He knows what it means. He knows you are one of elect I, the read ones, whether you truly are or not. You have been initiated, in the most brutal way, into his world. He looks at your face, at the desperate earnestness in your eyes. He looks at the pathetic pile of coins. He sighs, a long, weary sound, like a man who knows he's about to take on a thankless task. "1 hour," he says, "after I close my stall." A grin spreads across your face. The first genuine, uncomplicated smile in months. You have found a new teacher. Your journey into the world of letters, which began as a desperate lie in a dark cell, is about to begin for real. The next verse saved your life. But now you realize it has also given you one. It has opened it, or not just out of a prison, but into a different future, a future you could never have imagined, a future you could never have imagined, a future made of ink and parchment and the infinite, magical power of the written word. Your new life begins at dusk, after the old scribe, whose name is Alaric, has finished with his last customer. You sit with him on a small wooden crate beside his stall. Your first real lesson is nothing like your frantic sessions with Benedict. Alaric is methodical, patient, and deeply in love with his craft. He doesn't start with a psalm. He starts with a horn book. It's a small, flat piece of wood with a handle, on which a piece of parchment has been pasted. On the parchment, in large, clear letters, is the alphabet. Covering the parchment is a thin, translucent sheet of horn which protects the precious text from dirt and wear. It's a child's primer, the most basic to love learning. "This is the foundation," Alaric says, his long, bony finger pointing to the first letter. "This is A. It makes the sound R. This is the door. All other rooms follow." The process is slow, painstaking. You, a grown man with calloused hands and a brand on your thumb, sit among the evening shadows, learning the sounds a small child would. A, B, C. Each letter is a new discovery, a new piece of the great puzzle. Alaric teaches you the common sounds, the shapes of the letters in different hands, the formal, spiky Gothic script of books, and the faster, more flowing cursive used for business. You are a diligent student. The same desperate focus that allowed you to memorize the neck verse is now applied to the entire alphabet. You practice writing the letters in the dirt with a stick. You trace them in the air. You trace them everywhere. The curve of a sickle is a C. The trunk of a tree is an I. The world is slowly resolving itself from a collection of objects into a readable text. Alaric, initially gruff and reluctant, seems to take a quiet pride in your progress. He sees the hunger in you. He tells you stories of the power of his trade. He tells you of how a single, well-placed word in a contract can mean the difference between wealth and ruin for a merchant. He tells you how a carefully written letter can secure a marriage alliance or expose a political underworlds. He shows you that literacy is not just a party trick to escape the gallows. It is the true currency of power in the world. After many weeks, you graduate from the hornbook to simple words, then to simple sentences. Alaric has you read from old legal documents, from merchants' ledgers, from cheap copies of popular fables. Each one is a struggle, a mountain to be climbed, but with each one you conquer, your world expands. One evening you finally feel ready. You ask Alaric if he has a psalter, a book of psalms. He raises an eyebrow, understanding the significance. He pulls a small, well-worn volume from his bag. It is not the grand, illuminated manuscript from the courtroom. It is a simple, practical book, made for a working priest or a scholar, not for show. He opens it to the 51st Psalm. Your heart beats a little faster. You look down at the page, and you see it. Miserere me Deus, secundum magna em misericordiem tuam. It is all there, but now it is different. You are not just seeing the shapes, the landmarks. You see the M and the I and the S in misery. You see the DEUS in Deus. You can sound them out. You can actually, truly read the words. You read the verse aloud, your voice steady and clear, and for the first time, the meaning of the prayer, "Have mercy on me, O God," resonates not as a memorized line, but as a genuine, heartfelt plea that you understand in your very bones. You have come full circle. The verse that you recited as a fraud, you can now read as a scholar. The journey that began in terror has ended in understanding. You continue to work with Alaric, becoming his unofficial apprentice. You help him by mixing his inks, cutting his quills, and keeping his stall tidy. In return, he continues your education. Your reading becomes more fluent, your writing more elegant, your writing more added to a bishop, the correct phrasing a letter to a bishop, the correct phrasing for a merchant's bill of sale. You are acquiring a valuable, marketable skill. The irony of your situation is not lost on you. The very loophole that branded you as a criminal has set you on the path to becoming a legitimate member of the literate class. Historians often debate the social impact of the benefit of clergy. Did it, by encouraging a performance of literacy, inadvertently create a greater demand for real education among the populace? Did men who cheated the gallows then go on to seek the genuine skills they had faked? Your story suggests that for some at least, it was a brutal but effective catalyst for social mobility. You are no longer the peasant. You are no longer the prisoner. You are becoming a scribe, a man who lives by the power of the word. And as your new life begins to take shape, you remember the other part of your journey, the loose end, the promise you made in the dark. The stone is still in your pocket. It's time to go to Lynn. The journey to Lynn is the first real journey of your life. Before, your world was the village, the woods, and the city walls. Now, you are deliberately setting out on the road, traveling a distance that would have once seemed as impossible as a voyage to the moon. You travel on foot, joining groups of other travelers, merchants, pilgrims, friars for safety. The roads are dangerous, but the world is wide and full of wonders you've never seen. After more than a week of walking, you arrive in Lynn. It is a bustling port town, crouched on the edge of the great wash where the river meets the sea. The air tastes of salt and fish, a smell entirely new to you. Great ships with tall masts are tied up at the wharves, their ropes creaking. Men from foreign lands with strange clothes and strange accents shout in the streets. It is a place of constant movement, of comings and goings, a perfect place for a man with no past to start a new future. You find Benedict's sister living in a small, tidy house in a lane of respectable artisans. Her name is Eleanor, and she is a weaver, her small home filled with the rhythmic clatter of her loom. When you knock, she opens the door and looks at you with wary, cautious eyes. She is a woman who has clearly known hardship but carries herself with a quiet dignity. You tell her your name, and that you have a message from her brother Benedict. Her face lights up with a fragile, hopeful smile. Benedict, you have seen him. Is he well? The monastery. Does it suit him? This is the moment. The performance you promised to give. It is a different kind of lie than the one you told in the courtroom. This one is not for your own life but for the peace of another. You take the smooth, grey stone from your pocket and hand it to her. He gave me this for you, you say, your voice soft. I was with him. At the end, he found a great peace in the monastery. The life of prayer suited him well. He was respected by the other brothers. You weave the tale Benedict asked for. You tell her he spent his days in the library, studying the scriptures he had once neglected. You tell her he died not from a hangman's rope, but from a simple fever, and that he passed peacefully in his sleep, his last words a prayer for her. You describe the fictional monastery, the quiet gardens, the sound of the chanting monks. You paint a picture of a good death, a redeemed end. Tears well up in Eleanor's eyes, but they are not tears of pure grief. They are mingled with relief and a kind of sad pride. Thank you, she whispers, clutching the stone to her chest. Thank you for bringing me this. I had always worried. To know he found his way back to God. It is a great gift. You have given her the kind lie, the good death Benedict wanted for her. A wave of relief washes over you. The debt is paid. You stay in Lynn. There is nothing for you in the city you left, and this town with its connection to the sea and the wider world feels like a new beginning. You find work at the docks, your strong back still useful for hauling cargo. But in the evenings, you practice your letters. You spend what little money you have on scraps of parchment, on a stick of ink. One day you see a notice posted near the office of the portreeve. He is looking for a junior clerk, someone to help with the endless paperwork of a busy port. Logging cargo, copying customs receipts, recording duties paid. The work requires a clear hand and a head for numbers. It is a world away from farming. On an impulse, you go to the Reeves office. He is a busy, impatient man, a merchant who has risen to a position of civil authority. He looks at your rough clothes and is about to dismiss you, just as Alaric had. I can read and write, you say, your voice steady, and my numbers are good. The Reeves scoffs. A docker who can write, unlikely. You do not argue. You simply pick up a spare quill from his desk, dip it in the inkwell, and on a scrap of parchment, you write your name. Then below it, you write the first verse of the 51st Psalm. Your handwriting, thanks to Alaric's patient teaching, is clear, precise, and elegant. The Reeve stares at the parchment. He looks at the script, then back at you, his expression changing from disbelief to grudging respect. He is a practical man. He doesn't care where you came from. He cares about what you can do. And a man who can write like that is useful. Be here at sunrise tomorrow, he grunts, and find some better clothes. You walk out of his office into the salty air of Lynn, a smile spreading across your face. You have done it. You have turned the lie into the truth. The skill you faked to save your life has now genuinely given you a new one. The story of the neck verse is often seen as a quirky, almost amusing footnote in legal history, a strange loophole for lucky criminals. But for you, it was the crucible that forged a new man. It was a brutal, terrifying, and ultimately transformative ordeal. It took a peasant, burned away his old identity, and left in his place a clerk. A survivor. A man who understands in a way few others ever could. But a single sentence, learned in the dark, can change the world. You are no longer defined by the land you were tied to, but by the skills you have acquired. You are a free man in a way you could never have been before, all thanks to a sinner's prayer and a cynical, dead teacher to whom you owed a beautiful life. Your new life as the portreeve's clerk settles into a comfortable, quiet rhythm. The days are filled with the scratching of your quill, the precise columns of numbers, and the satisfying heft of a sealed document. You are good at this work. The same intense focus that allowed you to memorize a psalm in a dungeon now allows you to spot a discrepancy in a shipping manifest with ease. You are becoming a man of substance, a man defined by his skill, not his birth. Then, one day, a ghost from your past walks into the office. It's a man from your old village. His name is William, a man you grew up with, played with as a boy, and worked alongside in the fields. You haven't seen him in years. He looks older, his face more deeply lined with worry. He has come to Lynn to sell his wool, a journey he probably makes once a year. He doesn't recognize you at first. Why would he? You are not the boy he knew. You are dressed in the respectable, dark clothes of a clerk. You are cleaned. You stand with a different posture, to his eyes a different person. He approaches the Reeves counter, his hat in his hands, his demeanor humble and slightly intimidated by the official setting. He needs a customs receipt stamped. You are the clerk on duty. You take his document, your hands steady, your face a calm, professional mask. But inside your heart is a riot. Memories flood back. The smell of your mother's pottage, the feel of the mud between your toes, the face of the Reeve as he fell. This man, William, was in the market square that day. He was part of the hue and cry. He was one of the faces in the mob that hunted you in the wood. He looks at you, squints a little. A flicker of confusion crosses his face. Your face is familiar, but the context is all wrong. Do I know you, Master Clerk? He asks, his voice hesitant. This is a crossroads. You could deny it. You could pretend he is mistaken. You could use the authority of your new position to dismiss him and send him on his way. It would be the safe thing to do. But looking at his simple, worried face, you feel a strange sense of pity, not fear. You have traveled 1,000 miles from the man you once knew, while he is still trapped in that same small world. I am from Oakhaven Village, you say quietly, using the name of your old home. William's jaw drops. His eyes go wide with a mixture of shock and primal fear. He stumbles back a step, as if you had suddenly grown horns. He looks around the office at the stacks of parchment, at your ink-stained fingers, at the respectable Reeve working at his desk in the background. It doesn't make sense. It's like seeing a ghost wearing a king's crown. But you killed the Reeve, he stammers, his voice a horrified whisper. They said you were hanged. The law has many rooms, you say. The words coming easily now. I was found to be a clerk. The church had its own judgment. You showed him your left hand, turning the thumb so he can see the faint, puckered scar. The brand, the mark of your passage. William stares at it, his mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. To him, law is simple and brutal. There is the crime and there is the rope. This other path, this clerical magic, is beyond his understanding. He sees you not as a man who survived, but as something unnatural, someone who has cheated fate itself. The fear in his eyes is now mixed with a kind of awe. This reaction is in itself a historical artifact. The gulf between the educated and the uneducated, between those who understood the system and those who were merely crushed by it, was immense. The idea of legal fictions, things that were legally true even if factually false, like your clerical status, was a concept that baffled the common mind. Academics still debate how deeply these legal nuances were understood outside the courtroom. For most, like William, it was simply black magic. He can't get away from you fast enough. He snatches his stabbed document from the counter, mumbling a terrified apology, and practically flees the office. You watch him go, a sad, final severing of your last tie to the past. He will go back to the village with an incredible story, a tale of the boy who killed Amelia and came back as a ghost in a clerk's coat. You will become a legend in your own home, a cautionary tale whispered by the fire. And you will never, ever be able to go back. The net verse saved your life, but it also took it, and gave you this new one in its place. The transaction is, you realize, complete. Years pass. The salt-lay stare of Lynn weathers your face, and the endless work of the Port Authority gives you a quiet confidence. You are no longer the Reeves junior clerk. Old Master Rave has retired, and you the man from nowhere. the man with the skill and the sharp mind, have taken his place. You are now the portrait of Lynn. You are a man of standing. You are a man of standing. You have a small, comfortable house. You have a wife, a kind woman from a local merchant family. You have children who are learning their letters from a hornbook just as you once did. Your past is a locked room in the house of your mind. You rarely open the door. The brand on your thumb has faded into a pale, silvery scar, a quiet reminder that only you understand. Your life is peaceful, orderly, and prosperous. Then, one blustery autumn day, the past comes for you. A new King's Justice is riding the circuit. He is a young, ambitious man, eager to make a name for himself by rooting out corruption and enforcing the king's law with a new, uncompromising vigor. He arrives in Lynn and decides to conduct a thorough review of the port's accounts, looking for any sign of rot. You are not worried. Your books are immaculate. You have been scrupulously honest, perhaps more so than any reeve before you, because you know how fragile second chances are. You present your ledgers to the justice and his clerks in your office. The justice is a sharp-eyed man named Baron DVC. He pores over your work, his face a mask of concentration. He asks pointed questions. You answer them calmly and precisely. He seems almost disappointed by your competence. As the day wears on, he sets aside a ledger and picks up a customs dispute document you have prepared. He reads your neat, clear script. You have a fine hand, Master Reeve, he says, a hint of surprise in his voice. The hand of a university man. A simple trade school, my lord, you reply, using a story you have told for years. He looks at you more closely, a long, appraising stare. There is a flicker of something in his eyes, a strange intensity. Have we met before, Master Reeve? Your face seems familiar. Your blood runs cold. It is the same question William the farmer asked all those years ago, but coming from this man, this powerful agent of the king's law, it is infinitely more dangerous. I do not believe so, my lord, you say, your voice betraying none of the sudden panic you feel. I have not travelled far from Lynn in many years. The justice continues to stare. He is a man who prides himself on his memory for faces, for details. He is a hunter, and he senses something is amiss. Strange, he murmurs more to himself than to you. There was a case when I was just a boy, accompanying my father, who was the justice then. A trial in a small town in the Midlands. A peasant boy who killed a reeve. An audacious claim of clergy. He pauses. He read his verse. I remember being astonished. You feel as if the floor has dropped out from under you. The locked room in your mind has been blown open. The past is not in the past. It is sitting across the desk from you, wearing a fur-trimmed robe. He was a boy with your colour hair. The justice continues, his eyes narrowed, searching your face for a reaction. And your eyes. You are trapped. You are the poor Treve of Lynn, a respected official. But you are also the boy with the bloody stone in his hand. A single word from this man could shatter your life, your family, your entire world. The old fear, the fear you thought you had buried forever, rises up, cold and suffocating. You are back in the king's court, facing the judge. The core of the benefit of clergy was that it protected you from being tried for the same crime twice in a secular court. But a powerful, determined man like DVC could find other ways to ruin you. He could declare you an impostor, a fraud who has infiltrated a position of authority. He could strip you of your office, your wealth, your good name. You look at your hands resting on the desk. You see your left thumb, with its pale, silvery scar. He has not seen it yet. You could try to bluff your way through, but you look into his intelligent, relentless eyes, and you know it is hopeless. He is a man who enjoys solving puzzles, and he is one step away from the solution. The lie that has sustained you for 2 decades is about to unravel. The silence in the office stretches thin and taut. Baron DVS's eyes are fixed on you, the triumphant gleam of a hunter who has cornered his quarry. The air crackles with unspoken accusation. Your new life, built so carefully over so many years, is about to crumble into dust. Your wife, your children, your home, all of it is balanced on the edge of a knife. You do not panic. You do not plead. The lessons learned in that dark cell run too deep. Benedict taught you to play the role. Alaric taught you to own it. You have been a clerk, a reeve, for longer than you were ever a peasant. The identity is no longer a costume. It is your skin. Slowly, deliberately, you turn your left hand over on the desk, revealing the pale, shimmering scar on your thumb. You do not hide it. You present it. It is your final, unanswerable piece of evidence. You meet the Baron's gaze. My lord, you say, your voice perfectly level. The law has many runes. I was a boy who found himself in a dark one. The Holy Mother Church, in her wisdom, saw fit to lead me to another. She judged me. And she marked me so that all would know her judgment was final. You are not confessing to a crime. You are affirming a legal reality. You are reminding him not of who you were, but of what the law, in its own strange and convoluted way, decided you had become. You are invoking the other great beast, the Church, and the ancient, uneasy truce it holds with the crown. The Baron stares at the scar. His face is a complex mask of emotions. There is the satisfaction of a puzzle solved. There is the frustration of a lawyer who sees a loophole he cannot close. And there is something else, something unexpected, a flicker of grudging respect. He sees not a cowering peasant, but a man of substance and authority, a man who has not only survived the system but has mastered it. You have used the law's own arcane rules to transform yourself so completely that you are now a part of the very establishment that once sought to crush you. You are the system's unintended consequence, its most successful monstrous creation. This is the ultimate legacy of the neck verse. It was more than a loophole, it was a catalyst for social alchemy. It demonstrated that status, in a world obsessed with birth and station, could occasionally be redefined by a skill, even a fate one. While historians argue about whether it undermined or upheld the social order, your life is a testament to its power to do both at the same time. You escaped your peasant fate, but you did so by becoming a pillar of the very system that created that fate. The Baron leans back in his chair. The tension in the room breaks. The hunt is over. He, an agent of the King's law, is bound by the judgments of the Church's law, however much he may resent it. You have been legally cleansed. You have been branded. The case is, and has been for decades, closed. To challenge it now would be to challenge the authority of the Church itself, a messy and politically dangerous business. He lets out a long, slow breath. Your books are in order, Master Reeve, he says, his voice once again the formal, detached tone of a judge. He gathers his papers, his movements crisp and decisive. He stands up. See that they remain so. He gives you one last long look, a look that communicates 1,000 unsaid things. Then he and his clerks turn and sweep out of your office. You are left alone in the sudden quiet, the scent of their leather and importance still hanging in the air. You look down at your hand, at the scar on your thumb, the mark that was once a symbol of your shame, then your survival has now become your shield. You are safe. You walk to the window and look out over the bustling port of Lynn. You see the ships, the merchants, the endless flow of goods and people. This is your world. A world you built, one word, one number at a time. The ghost of the peasant boy is finally at rest. The debt to Benedict is paid. The promise of the neck verse is fulfilled. It did not just save your neck. It delivered you into a new life, and it has just defended that life against the highest authority in the land. You take a deep breath of the salt-tinged air. You are the poor Reeve of Lynn, and it is time to get back to work. And so the story of the Reeve of Lynn, the boy who read a single verse and remade his world, comes to its quiet conclusion. The frantic race through the marketplace, the suffocating darkness of the gale, the heart-stopping tension of the courtroom, all of it now fades, like the memory of a dream upon waking. The ink on the ledgers has long since dried. The ships have sailed. The players have all left the stage. All that remains is the deep, peaceful silence of a story told. You can feel that silence now, settling around you. A gentle, comforting weight. Perhaps you can feel your own story for tonight beginning to unfold. A story told not in words, but in the soft rhythm of your breathing, in the feeling of warmth and heaviness that spreads slowly through your limbs. There is nothing left to figure out, nothing left to follow. The journey is complete. You have arrived at this calm, still harbor. You can let go of the anchor of your thoughts now, and simply, the world of lords and laws, of sins and psalms dissolves into the soft, deep darkness behind your eyelids. All that is left is this moment, this comfort, this gentle descent into a place of perfect rest. A place where there are no trials, no tests to be passed, only peace. The final page is turned. If your eyelids are still not heavy, another story might be the final lullaby you need. Sleep sweetly. Good night.